We are going to start with some heavyweight buzzers. This particular buzzer is a pattern that's been floating around my box for a little while now. It's something, the hooks can be a bit of a pain to get your hands on really. They're a Drennan, they are, wide gape specialist. They're just really heavy wired hooks. There are others out there you can get your hands on. Tiemco's make a 3 times heavy. The Hichi and so on.
All the coarse fishing shops, if you excuse me, sell those.
That's it, yeah. Coarse anglers, coarse angling shops. These are actually just heavyweight carp hooks, boilie hooks, or so on. They're a good way to get either a floating line or a midge tip line to pull over into the water, so you get a nice deep presentation on whether it's nymphs up a cast, other buzzers up a cast. Obviously early year the fish are down deep. They might not be far off the bank, but you will need to get your heavyweight fly down deep fast. Last year we came against a situation in Graffham where we'd had baking hot sunshine, and we ended up putting, believe it or not, 4 of these on the same cast on a die 7, casting as far as we possibly can and just left them in. Just leave a man vertical. You weren't actually getting a fish until the weight of the line and everything else was pulling the rod tip into the water. And then all of a sudden, once it was vertical, you just had to be shit back up, straight up underneath it. In flat calm conditions, not a breath of wind. We were all sunburned after 3 days of this. None of us really clocked on to what was happening. We were all trying to fish deep boobies and so on. They didn't want to know. One of the boys happened to put a set of nymphs out with a big heavyweight on the point, and just sort of left it there. And he just sort of pulled the end of this floating line down, so we thought, oh hang on, let's keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. We went down to a 15-foot midge tip with a 30-foot leader and 4 heavyweight glues, and we were starting to pick up more and more and more, and in the end we just thought, what's the point, put on a die 7. And we started casting a die 7, fastest sinking line out in the market more or less, with 4 of the heaviest sinking flies we could get on. Just mad bit efficient. So this is something that I would say would be handy to every angler's box, that is going to go into a large reservoir, especially early season or mid hot summer.
What was the time of year for your Graffham trip?
It was in July, I believe. It was smack in the middle of July, but it was a baking hot weather. We were all sunburned. Terrible it was. Absolutely terrible. So I'm going to start off showing you the hook. I'm going to start by putting on some black thread, standard black thread. It's fairly thin. I sort of start by catching it on. Cut off the excess. I've got white poly yarn. You normally see it for dry flies and posts. It's just something to give it a breather. So catch that in. I'm going to tie it back to the eye. And with open turns, I'm going to go all the way down. Ooh, that wasn't a grabbing. I'm going to go all the way down, right round the bend. There. I've got breathers both ends. I'm going to take off the excess off the front, just a little bit of it. Just to take it out of my way when I'm tying it, that's all. I'm going to come back up and open turns. I want this as thin as I can possibly get it, but not too thin obviously, because it's a fairly big fly. This is just white flexi floss or white span flex, and this is very fine silver that's going in with it. So what I'm going to do is I've just caught them both in with 1 turn each. I'm actually going to pull the white flexi floss to keep it as thin as I can and tie down. And then close all the gaps up as I'm coming up, so I've got a black body. I'm not too worried about the touch and turn sort of things. Once this buzzer's varnished, it's gonna be black anyway, more or less. So I'm gonna start winding my flexi floss around. I'm not putting too much tension on it as I would with a brown or something, because I want this to stand out if I cut against the black. So it's a prominent white rib right the way up the fly. There we go. Round the silk twice, silk up, tie off. There we go. Now I'm going to turn the hook. It's easier, I'm going to put an extra turn there just in case. It's easier if I turn the vice sideways to come around so I can see my rib coming over the top. I can follow it all the way around. And what I'm doing with this rib is laying it right alongside the white flexi floss to give the outside of my flexi floss more or less a hue of an effect. And there's my body done. As it goes round, you'll see that it's sitting alongside. Yeah, I never got him out somewhere. Jungle cock is a material we tend to use for cheeks. I've seen it used as wings and also some tails on some flies. But in this case, we're going to use it as wing cases. So I'm going to take an eye that's proportionate to the size of the fly. It's a lovely eye for the size of a salmon fly, and I'm going to absolutely wreck it in a minute. I'm going to run a scissors right up the middle. I'm going to pull off the rest of the fur at the bottom, and I'm going to tie the jungle cock in as one feather on the back there. I'm going to move my breathers out of the way, because no doubt I'll cut them off, especially in a demonstration. And my cheeks are going to be fluorescent orange duct tape. I don't think I need to put that in front of the camera. I think everybody can see that. Fluorescent orange duct tape, acquired from Asda. It's not something that's, hard to get hold of. It comes in loads of different colours: fluorescent pink, fluorescent chartreuse, bright green, blues, tiger, you name it, you can get it. Stick it to something, a hard surface, as it happens to be on this today. I've stuck it at the top of my box. I've just cut it with the fine straight edge. I've cut it about 2 millimeters thick, just to cut it off. And I can see there's one strand. If I put it there, just coming, then I've cut it off. Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? I'm a bit of a weatherman. So I've cut it fairly thin.
It's as good as a Doritos crisp bag.
Well, it's brighter, and it's very durable. I'm going to cut a bit off it. One thing is, it sticks to everything you touch. It sticks to, absolutely sticks itself to everything. For this, I'm going to turn the vice upside down. If you haven't got a rotary vice, it doesn't really matter, because I'm tying it in fairly close to the eye of the hook, but I want to tie it underneath the hook. And repeat on the opposite side. So I'm hoping they're not going to stick together. And I'll stick to my finger. There we go. And again, with open turns, I'm going to catch it down to where about the area where I want it. There we go. I'm going to cover all the white on the underside of the tape and build my head on the fly. With the big heavyweight buzzers, don't be afraid or worried about the size of the head on the buzzer, because these are normally a sacrificial to get you down to the area where all the fish are. Some instances they will take them. This particular pattern is one that I use right away to a size 14, and they don't seem afraid to take it at all for some reason. Even in this size, they'll take it really small. I can do the same fly if you'd like to see on a smaller hook, so you can more as a fishing fly rather than a heavyweight sacrificial. I'm pulling the cheeks up to cross and sit on the eye. You can see how it's come up from underneath and come up over the top. Turn this again. And as I said, it can be a bit of a pain, especially with the breather at the front. This duct tape seems to just want to stick to everything it touches. And it'll tend to stick to your breather, so when you got your first one, see it's starting to stick, you make sure you just peel everything off it, or you'll end up chopping the lot off when it comes to taking away the excess. There we go. Just cover the little bit of orange. Put one turn underneath the breather to kick it up slightly. And for the purpose of the demonstration, I've asked John to bring along his bug bond, or bug off, crystal, diamond hardener, or so on. The reason I've asked is obviously just so the fly can go around and you can all have a look at it without me lashing coats and coats of Sally Hansen or Rimmel on it. I asked John to bring his bug bond because I don't own bug bond. I'm not a lover of it at all. I don't use it at all. I know people got fors and against for it, and for pike flies and so on, bass flies, every other type of fly that you'd normally use epoxy on, I'm all for it. But buzzers, I really don't believe it does you any good at all. It's a bit of a personal thing, I suppose, but I don't think you can possibly get the same amount of weight into a buzzer with bug bond as you can with Sally Hansen. Oh, look at that running now. I don't believe you can get the same amount of weight value. I'm giving it 8-10 coats of. Let's get on there quick, is it? 8-10 coats of a normal varnish that would soak right in. I believe is far more efficient to give my buzzers the extra weight that I'm after. You can still form shapes with varnish. It just takes a little bit longer, and control of your form or whatever you've stuck them into. There we go. That's better.
You were saying, Sean, that the Sally Hansen can be 4 or 5 times heavier.
Yeah, it adds. It'll soak in. It just keeps soaking in, and you lose the first 8 coats, 6-8 coats, unless your varnish is. If you've got a fairly new varnish, like that one's an oldish one, it's taken a lot longer to run around the bottle. Whereas a brand new one turns, but you can see the bubble turn in really quickly. So the first couple of coats, I'd probably lose about 5 or 6 coats of that into the actual silk and material of the fly first, and then I'd finish off with a much finer layer, and it'll soak in and just keep soaking. I've given buzzers as much as 10-12 coats. If you keep putting this finer one into it, it'll just keep soaking in, and the weight on your buzzers, it can be 5 times heavier, and you just really want to. That is the beauty of getting them down. You're taking the step to go for the big hook, and then you're taking your weight out by using a lighter product. Alright, it does take a lot longer, obviously, but it's part of the fly tying process of actually building or creating a fly, building a fly.
That's it, the bug bond just lays on top, it doesn't soak in.
It doesn't soak in.
Yeah.
I've seen people giving them coats and coats of varnish until it seals and a fine layer of bug bond. Yeah, okay. I can understand it. But again, you haven't, if you're taking the time to make a nice fly that you're going to use for a purpose, you may as well go the full 9 yards. So it's something that we found through a process of elimination. And I had this conversation with Mr. Bug Bond himself.
Bug bond doesn't always go hard, it stays tacky.
Stays tacky. Well, I had this conversation with himself, but
Yeah.
I was told to ash quickly. I'm just going to hook this into a bit of foam. I'm going to pass it round. Don't drop it on your toes because this is health and safety. This could break your toe. So you get when it comes around, you get a value of the size on the thickness of the wire that is tied on. You'll really see why this thing goes down, and it'll really pull the end of your fly line down with it. And the more of them you put on, obviously the quicker it's going to go. I've seen our team using 2 of them, point fly, second drop it up, and then 2 of the nymphs up the cast. The other good tip you can use with them for is not so much to get you depth, but to get you an anchor point. We use it for getting an anchor point in weed. We cast it out, we won't move it at all, and we come across a big flat weed bed. The weed bed might only be 5 foot down. We are using that, we cast it out, it goes down, it sits on the weed. And that's all we do is lift the rod in the air. And we'll feel the rod starting to bend over. That's your anchor point in the weed. And we'll hold the rod up at 45 degrees. And we'll see the tip of the rod. It's like beach fishing. You get your gripper to stop, and then you bend into it. And we do exactly the same. We just figure of 8. And once we got that bend, we are drifting forward, and just keep that bend on the rod, figure 8, and to get that bend. What that's doing is hooking us in the weed, and we're suspending 3 of the flies above the weed. Anything that swims along the weed just swims straight into our cast. The take mine is savage. It really does pull you over. But it's a good way around it when you can put boobies on a point. The rest of your cast is going to do that into the weed. You're going to lose 3 flies. Eventually, they're going to hit the weed. That way, you're actually keeping them out of the weed. It's an opposite to a water line, if you want to call it. And it can be really, really effective in the summer months, especially when they're over the weed beds. Roman shallows and stuff like that on chew. It's great for it. It's really good for it. So that's heavy. So we're going to go down right. Would you like me to do another one, a smaller one, a more fishing size one? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll do it on a B160, size 8. This is more of a fishing size one that we'd use for general buzzer fishing rather than sacrificial buzzer fishing. I've lost my bit of fluff. It's the same size, same sort of proportion to it. It's just slightly slimmed down. Been on a diet. I don't know if anybody else seems to like doing it, but even with a straight hook, I'll tie around the bend. There was a big thing between curved hooks and straight hook buzzers for a long time. Everyone was curved hook, and then everybody started to go straight. I don't like them dead straight on the hook. It's not something. I have used them, and they do work. Especially olive. Olive seems to work better straight, but black, especially Chew, Blagden, the big ones that come off Rutland, Gratham. I do like to tend to have that little bend just on the butt end of them. It just gives them a little bit more life. So just repeating the process. Tying the white flexi floss down. Only tension on the flexi floss, not the wire, or we'll end up pulling the wire out. They do take slightly longer than a normal buzzer then, where you tend to put less turns of silk onto them, less materials, winding them down. Normally with a normal buzzer it's just keep your tag on and use your tag as your touching turn keeper. So there is slightly more work in them, but they are really quite effective, especially for difficult fish. This tends to be not only a good buzzer for general buzzer fishing, but I find they like this one more under the bung. Now I know I'm waiting for the ooh. He's a float fisherman. Yes, I do use the bung. Anybody else like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I've been in many a conversation over that. Nothing but a maggot drowner. So, funny enough, one of our team is world champion maggot drowner.
Huh?
Yeah, he's police champion. Maggot drowning. Should have seen his face when we got the bung going one week. It was hard work to get off it. Once he got it working once, it was hard work to get off it. He thought that was a be all and end all of lake fishing. And once he got that going, patience, mind. Anybody know him? Martin Barrett.
No.
Anybody know him?
Are you allowed to use that on the river, Sean?
The
bung?
No.
yes, yes. It's called the tangerine dry fly.
We do, John, don't we?
It's called the tangerine dry fly. Yeah, there's again, it's a bit of a thing of this.
Was it all arrow wing? Arrow wing.
Sorry?
Was it arrow wing?
Oh no, mine's far more simple than that. Mine's just a block form group. Look. Yeah, mine's real. It's not far off. What do they call them? Pimps, is it? Fish pimp. Mine's not far off that. A block of foam glued to a hook, and I cut it into a nice little triangle, and I round the ends of the triangle up to make it a little bit more aerodynamic. But this thing is 15-20 mil thick. It's a substantial. You know, I've got them about that sort of diameter.
I think we might have seen them.
Yeah, I've got some.
Like your pike fishing.
Yeah.
Your pike thing.
It's like a popper.
Yeah.
But,
Bit difficult getting the fish in if you've got a 20-foot lead on.
Sorry?
Bit difficult getting the fish in if you've got a 20-foot lead on.
Well, this is it. A lot of people don't realise that the bung is depth specific. You can use, but the best depth of water for fishing the bung is 12 foot. And your leader setup is far more crucial than anything with the bung. It's about getting flies in every depth of water as you go down. Graham Pearson, typical example of the bung. 3 foot, 3 foot, 3 foot, 9 feet, and then you go 3 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot underneath his bung. That's his typical Graham setup. So you see him using a bung, you can more or less guarantee you got his leader right. It's just understanding what he's using. I know he's a bit of a stickler for olive, so there's one you can sort of rule out. But half the time you just never know when it's gonna take off. Now, I find the best condition for the bung is flat calm, and everybody tends to use it in a fine ripple. You need to think that everything that happens to that bung happens to your flies. So if you've got a wind and your bung is going up and down on a wind, so are your flies.
I was dragging it as well.
This is it, yeah. The wind will catch your bung and move your bung exactly the same as any other object on top of the water. It can be effective from an anchored boat, where you cast it out, you just stop the boat. Obviously, you are at a stop, cast out 90 degrees, and you leave the wind grenade around. It's a very long process. You just chuck it out and just forget about it. Far more. Farmo, it's absolutely lethal. You just cast it out 90 degrees from off each other, and you just leave it come round. Do the people that do fish the bung regularly, have you found that they prefer finer nylon? No?
I fish
It's
fairly fine anyway.
Hmm?
I fish it fairly fine anyway.
Yeah, it's just I'm not a big lover of the heavy nylon apart from pulling. If I'm pulling, I'm using 16 pound, so it's as thick as it's gonna get. You know, I don't fish so thick for sea trout or salmon. But if I'm pulling 2 blobs back on Rutland or Chew or anywhere, I use 16 pound, and you know it's no good for this kind of stuff. And then you've got some of the boys using Rio Fluoroflex Plus, or no, what's the really expensive one? Proflex. It's like £22 a spoon, 12.5, and they fish dries on it. I can't. I couldn't possibly do that. I'd have no confidence in fishing dries on £12 nylon. But they reckon there's no difference at all in it. It's not quite up my alley.
What do you call fine for that then? 6 or something?
No, I go down to 4s, 5s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go down to really for lake fishing. It's fairly fine. I've gone as far as £3 nylon for Brenegg. I do a lot of, when they're up on the dries, I do tend to use finer nylon, but my kit is scaled down to match.
What weight outfit?
It'll be a 9 foot for a 5 GLS Classic, so it's fine for lake fishing.
Yeah.
And I'd have no problem fishing dries on that, on £3, £4 nylon. I do like thick nylon for that mind. I like fully mill, £3 fully mill. It's brilliant stuff for lake fishing. No good for the rivers. It's the diameter's way too much. You could go £5 Grand Max, I suppose, but I'm tight. I won't pay for £5 Grand Max. If I'm going to buy it, I buy 7.5, 12.5, and that's about it really.